Hi friends, thank you so much for tuning in today. My name is Colby Sharp. I am a 5th grade teacher in Michigan. I'm really excited to have Jarrett J. Krosoczka on today's episode of One Question with Mr. Sharp. Jarrett is an amazing author. His new book, Hey Kiddo, is a graphic novel memoir telling the story of his life growing up with a mom addicted to heroin and with her being in and out of jail. It is a phenomenal read. It's easy to see why the National Book Award Committee named it to their long list. I highly recommend it. I was really curious what Jarrett thought about kids who maybe aren't dealing with difficult things in their lives. I mean, we all deal with difficult things, but who aren't dealing with some of those things that we might say like drug addiction or abuse and different things like that. Why would a book like Hey Kiddo be good for them to read? What might they get out of it? So I asked Jarrett. Here's his response.
Hello, Mr. Sharp. Thank you for your question. You know, when you say that many of your students, don't have experiences like my childhood experiences were, and why they would benefit from a book like this, I would venture out and say that some of those students that one might think do not have addiction at home, they may very well do it. And I'm not saying that, the adults at school aren't attentive to what's happening, but that child might be doing such a good job of covering the tracks of the adults in their lives and putting the best face forward at school that you might not ever know if something tough is happening at home. And that was me when I was a kid. I did not talk to any of my teachers about what was happening or any of my peers until I was a little bit older. But for those students of yours who have no addiction at home, I hope that a book like Hey Kiddo could aid children in understanding what their peers are going through, to perhaps offer more sympathy if maybe one of their peers is being very aggressive, or on the flip side, like I was, very timid. And I also hope that a book like Hey Kiddo could offer some insight on what the addict is going through, because I really had to dig deep into the character of my mother, and not make it just a black and white issue, because it is so very complicated. I know that she would want nothing more than to have been there for me when I was a kid, but right up to the end, she wasn't able to. So more than anything, I hope that a book like Hey Kiddo could elicit empathy in the young reader. So now I have to ask a question of you, and I'm going to sort of tie it in all together here. So when I was a kid, I loved reading comic strips, and I loved reading the novelizations of my favorite movies, and I have a couple of them here. In the summer of 1989, I must have read this little paperback about 7 or 8 times. And I would read Snoopy and Garfield and Calvin and Hobbes in the newspaper every single day, and then I would get the treasuries. And so I've made a career of writing sort of lighthearted, silly books like the Lunch Lady books or Platypus Police Squad, and now I'm working on Jedi Academy. And I hear from adults and young readers all the time who will confide in me that those books helped them get through some really difficult situations, some really dark times for people, but they would latch onto these books. So what I would like to ask the viewers, what sort of lighthearted book or silly book, or book that might not be considered prestigious, has helped you get through some difficult times in life?
Jarrett, thank you so much for answering my question. Friends, answer Jarrett's question down below. What is that book that maybe hasn't won a Newbery Medal or a Caldecott Medal or have shiny stickers on it, maybe isn't critically acclaimed, that helped you in your life? Leave a comment down below. I would love to know. Jarrett would love to know. Check out Hey Kiddo. It's an important book. I think it's going to change a lot of lives. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have an awesome-tastic day, and happy reading.